the cry for decolonial neuroscience between evidence and belonging. So it's important for you to understand what decolonial neuroscience, evidence, and belonging. And that's the title, Cry for Decolonial Neuroscience Between Evidence and Belonging. Neuroscience is a relatively recent science. It's new, it's recent. Around 2010, around that time, neuroscience emerged, and its objective is precisely to study brain and peripheral systems, nerves, and see how this thing works, how this mind, this consciousness, and these things related to the brain and brain functions. Derived from this focus, based on this research, some people talk about the mind. For example, Antonio Damasio says that neuroscience, interoception, and proprioception create the mind. So the human mind begins to have some terms coming from neuroscience or possibly from neuroscience, and even Damasio, and I also adopt this reference, I put it as within this mind, within interoception and the exception itself, this processing, you can reference yourself in your feelings and this reference within the mind consciousness. Consciousness is a referencing. So to keep it simple for you, you can refer to yourself as a man, a woman, a mother, a father, a son, a friend, a cousin, an engineer, an employee, a waiter, a teacher. You refer to something. As an actor, you watch a movie, and sometimes in the movie, you're referring to the main actor or protagonist or someone in the movie. My brother sometimes referred to himself in a cool movie, but he referred to an animal that was the highlight of the film. He was the center of the film. So you refer to something. And then you have a different consciousness where you reference yourself. Referencing yourself is assuming a place of speech. Referencing yourself is creating a tensional self. It's elaborating a tensional self. So that's the idea. This comes from neuroscience. And why am I talking about the cry of decolonial neuroscience? Because look, before neuroscience, there was a whole philosophical process that existed in Europe, exists everywhere. And in these processes, there was also talk of a so-called existential self, a self that exists forever. Do you understand? You were born, and this self continues forever. And this self, when you go to neuroscience, doesn't exist. Neuroscience doesn't study this self. It doesn't exist because it doesn't exist. There's no self anywhere. It doesn't exist. I don't have it. So it's important for us to talk about this. So decolonial, she will say the following: neuroscience that wants science with evidence, which is the materiality of things, which is replicable, which is what can be done in a laboratory, what can be tested, what can be replicated. And why do I talk about evidence and belonging? Evidence is what you go to the laboratory and test. And belonging is an interesting thing. Belonging is something that is one. What everyone has in common. Remember when I told you about the human sense code? The human sense code, which is an idea I have, okay? It comes from the essence, from the base of bacteria. Bacteria sense how they act together depending on the information that arrives. So look, whoever controls the information that arrives controls you. That's the idea I want to convey to you today very clearly. And this idea also controls scientists. The information that reaches the scientist controls the scientist. The information that reaches you controls you. But Jackson, I'm against information. I'm for information. You don't understand what I'm talking about. In the human choreo scene, it doesn't matter if you're for or against. What matters is what comes, what controls you. So whether information is false or true is irrelevant to your little head. What matters is that the information that reaches you controls you. So whoever controls the information controls your life. That's it. Whoever controls the information that reaches you controls your life. That's how it is. So on social media, I'll choose what I want. Social media is controlled. All information is controlled. What I call Planet Zero One. The richest people in the world control social media. When they don't own social media, they own big tech. So the information that leaks from big tech and reaches you is through an algorithm that controls what you think. That doesn't mean it controls by always giving you what you believe, by giving you what you don't believe, because then your denial control controls your body too. Let's go. This is belonging. So, belonging is shared information. Today, in our culture, we are a culture of profit and accumulation, profit and accumulation. And in this culture, we believe in the invisible hand of the market. We believe in economic trickle down. The richer people earn and don't pay taxes, the better for everyone. These are all lies, lies put in our heads by those who are richer and control the information. It's that simple. Control the information, control the people. So it's important for us to distinguish this and this cry of neuroscience, which I'm doing on behalf of a bunch of researchers because I approached a researcher and started talking to him. But man, what do you think of spirit, soul, consciousness, mind? Oh, okay, Jackson, it's cool. The Damasian mind, it's cool. The spirit, and I have the idea of the spirit as being the spirit of the thing. The spirit, the essence of something, your memory, that semantic memory. When you talk about a tree, you already capture the spirit of the tree. You talk about a tree, the tree comes to mind. There's a brain image. I even call this brain image YouTube. Everything you think, everything you imagine, everything you can imagine that exists, I call YouTube. It's an image of this, it's a spirit, it's the spirit. Spirit is this, and the soul is when this image is connecting with your deepest feelings. Okay. And I was talking to this person and talking about consciousness and reference, and he said, look, Jackson, I do research and I will never ask a scientific question that could question the existential philosophical self. Look where we've gotten with neuroscience researchers, good researchers. I'll never ask a scientific question that questions whether the self doesn't continue forever. Basically, the researcher is saying the following. Let's maintain the same rhetoric, the same speech, just like our European ancestors, not those originally from the Americas. What the Europeans said, European colonialism, always keeps people in a post-mortem continuum, saying, look, you're going to be punished, there's going to be hell. So people become afraid. By being afraid, it's easier to be controlled. And neuroscience researchers say, and have already said to me, and not just one, I will never ask a question that questions continuity, that shows that the self doesn't continue, that shows that we are mortal. I will never do that. That doesn't have. But why? Is it because of your beliefs? Dude, this doesn't belong to me. No one's going to pay for it. So things are very complicated. The colonialism continues within neuroscience. So I'm going to specifically study this cell, this process, this molecule, this point, this brain that works this way. Then I'll put a TMS and change the brain. Okay, just very small things. But behind it all, whoever controls this entire society is the one who controls personal information, social and religious policies. So, by controlling this information, social and religious policies, the researcher doesn't have the head to ask a question. The question is already biased. The question is already biased, and that's important. Let's go. Let's play on the live stream today to see if we can explore these important facts a little more. For example, the emotions you experience. In my opinion, emotion is a bioelectrical thing. What is bioelectrical? You feel sleepy, your body already feels a shock. Sometimes you're doing something, someone scares you, it's a shock. When you're doing something and suddenly you feel happy, it's something fast in the whole body. So emotion is a very fast response. So emotion, you have emotion looking at a color, music, videos, flavors. So you have this thing where you have a generation, generations that I call bio. It's bioelectric. It's in the neurons. Emotions basically are the neurons firing. Look how interesting. Neurons firing. These firing neurons propose to you when they fire that you now be happy, be sad, be afraid. It proposes. Of course, it's not quite like that, but it's an idea to help you understand better. It proposes to you. Be sad, be surprised, be disgusted. Be happy, be content, be joyful. Happiness is not an emotion, but joy is an emotion. Be happy, right? Then you have like joy. And in that moment of joy, your system, your brain connectomy changes, the microstate, the EG microstate in your head, it gives a different movement. And in that moment, you can enter a feeling because the feeling will be the following. In that moment that I became happy, in that moment, I tense or release my commas and my body movements. And by detensioning or giving more flexibility to interoception and proprioception, I maintain a feeling. This feeling is a reference within the mind. It's a tensional self. It's your place of speech. In this moment, you go to this place of speech, but in the next moment, you may have changed. So the self isn't like that. You don't get this self with the characteristics of the self, this, because every moment you change your reference in your life. Every moment you are another self. That's really cool. It allows you to be free to be this other self. It's also important to know that this self, when you arrive at environments, when you change environments, when you look at a chair, for example, before you realize that a chair is a chair in about 150 milliseconds, when you see a picture of a chair, it looks like a picture of a chair. In approximately 150 milliseconds, your brain already senses a chair, something about sitting, but it doesn't understand it. You feel before you realize. You're already a doing machine before you realize. So this is interesting because it's part of the concept of body territory. It's part of the concept of extended proprioception. When you present yourself in certain environments, that environment already gives you the framework for what you do before you realize it. So you have in your brain the sense of what should be done before you realize it. In the next live stream, I think I'll talk more about this, but already focused on that because that's not today's topic. Today, we are moving towards this tensional self, this consciousness, these things related to this decolonial neuroscience. Taking away this self that exists forever, which they usually put back there in Europe to punish people even after death. The punishment to keep these people cheated. What's important for you today, and I'll pass it on to you, is to start paying attention to the middle of the game. This is a proposal I have, and you'll like it. My proposal is this. Consciousness is this reference within the mind. Consciousness is a tensional self. Consciousness is in that moment when you reference a place, whether happy, tense, upset or not, with feelings or emotions, you reference yourself. But when you reference yourself in your mind, there's something really cool. Let's suppose you have 10 feelings. No, you don't. You have more than 12, okay? No, not feelings. Senses, sight, hearing, proprioception, nocioception, smell. It's a motado. You have an order of senses. But let's suppose you have 10, okay? 10 senses. When you refer to a specific attention, each of your senses, and it's important for you to know this, each of your senses, when you refer to it, has a level. Maybe this one is at 50%, maybe this one less, this one more, this one less or more. So each one your senses are at a different level, right? What would that level be? It's the amplification level. Let's suppose you amplify all your senses. You amplify from 10 to 90, your vision. That's attention, okay? It's the focus of attention. You focus your vision at 90. Oh, you're focused on vision. Why is it at 90? Because I'm looking at all this, but I'm specifically looking at a little figure there. I don't know where that's moving, or else at hearing. But if I focus 90 on vision, my hearing isn't as focused, so the sounds aren't as focused. So suddenly my hearing is at 30, my smell is at 10, my touch is at 50. Doctor, every time you are a tensional self, that tensional self takes all the senses and graduates the amplification of the senses. That's it. So this means that each sensational, tensional, and tensional self perceives the world differently. Each perception depends, changes according to your reference. The reference changed, the perception changed. That's right. Why did you change your perception? Because your vision has a different focus, your hearing has a different focus, your taste has a different focus, your touch has a different focus, our perception, a different focus, amplification of that sense. Do you understand? So this is very important. What else do we want to talk about? In this factor of you taking these beings and these tensions, and when I told you that whoever controls the information controls you, information comes, vision, hearing, it comes, and it's coming to everyone. When this information is coming to everyone, what happens? Are you for or against? Okay. You think you have free will? Okay, it seems so. Okay. But whoever gave this information and this stimulus controls the stimulus that's being given. So your pros and cons are already biased. From whom? From whoever sent the stimulus. Understand? I said, for those of you who are sometimes in an audience of about 4,000 people, those 4,000 people will vote for something, but they will vote after the program is finished, 2 or 3 hours into the program. After 2 or 3 hours of the program, raise your hands. Who votes for this or that? Who votes for this or that? Who controls the programs? So I don't really like it. I still don't really believe in democracy because democracy is the best system for me. But democracy, the one who controls the program, is the zero one, the richest, the owners of the communication networks who control the information that reaches our heads. Who owns the information networks today? Today, it's big tech, the big tech. Then you have newspapers, television. So who controls the information? Who feeds it to you? And you polarize yourself in the information, whether you're for or against it. But someone comes to me, Jackson, are you for or against what's being done here in Prakadase? Look, I'm for or against what was done in Prakadase to some animal, some person, some car, some. I stop, and in that moment, when I stop and decide whether I'm for or against what the city government or someone else did in Prakadase, at that moment, my mind, my consciousness is hijacked to be for or against something. This is the control I'm talking about because someone who asked this question has controlled my attention. By controlling my attention, they've controlled who I am because the topics that come up, these topics come up. That wouldn't be a question of mine about what was done in Prakadase. It wouldn't be my question. It wouldn't be information I would seek. Yes, I don't seek it, but now I'm thinking and paying attention to it. And by paying attention to it, I regulate my senses. And by regulating my senses, a being, attentional self appears. This person asked me, I address this aspect, but the self has already changed. And this changed self suddenly is being used for something else, or even to trick you into something, or just to distract myself, pass the time. Letting life slip through your fingers. So it's important to know that life can be captured by this information system, and then you have your belonging captured. So, what is a captured belonging, dude? Regardless of the evidence, you perceive yourself as a whole along with other people. You are a collective, yes, but the collective is part of the information you received. This information is being controlled. So, be careful. You're looking, and if you're a researcher, you're seeing facts, the materiality of things. But the person looking at the materiality is the one who heard this information here and polarized themselves either for or against it. It's already modulated, already biased. Let's delve a little deeper into neuroscience. Neuroscience has something called neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity has to do with what you were formed with in the past, acting this way, always this way. Gradually, neuroplasticity, a little music, a little breathing, a little metacognition, which I'll talk about in a bit, you can change your habits, your beliefs, your way of being. I always tell you about Jan Raman. The baby begins to imitate the adult, imitate speech, imitating the way they walk, imitating how they eat, imitating everything the adult does, even imitating the adult's senses and feelings, the adult's emotions. And this imitation creates brain formation in the child's brain. But plasticity can undo these brain formations and modulate them in another way. So even if you have a belief in something or a bad habit or something very strong, something you say like, but I don't want to have that anymore. It's possible for you to go back because the brain has plasticity. And it's also important for you to know whenever in this neuroplasticity, if you have a restricted brain thinking that you are isolated from the planet, right? Like, look, nature was made for me. You're from somewhere else. This planet was prepared for you. So you separate yourself from the planet and think you're outside of the thing. You are the planet, you are the universe, you are everything you perceive. You are not isolated from anything. You are inside the machine, and the machine is you together. Understand? But when your brain is formed, there's me and them there, this separation between people. You can know this. The body territory will help you, this new concept. You always dissolve along with people. Our self, our identity within society, simply serves to give me a reference and differentiation number. But this is a document meant to flow in society. It's not meant to be, it's a tool. Identity is a tool. You are everything you perceive along with others. So, in a neuroplasticity, if you have a different idea, you can check it and change your mind a little and realize that you are what you perceive. So, you've perceived other people along with what's here in your head. You noticed yourself in the mirror. See, you're there in the mirror too, just as you perceive other people. So you perceive yourself in the mirror. They're not distinct beings, it's the same family. We are one. This planet, living beings have DNA. We are one. With the entire planet, there is no separation. Yes, but we separate to have this part. Social, look, I'm here, you're there, these are my clothes. But these are simply tools to help with this social interaction. It's not meant to be, you know? So you dilute yourself in these parts. Attention as an amplifier is also very important. Every time someone draws your attention to something, you know your attention isn't just listening. When your attention is drawn to a point, you recalibrate all your senses because an intentional self appears with different amplifications of each sense. And in that moment, when your attention shifts, your perception is already being shifted. It's like this. And if the person wants to hold your attention that way, you can even look at that fact and go with a different tensional self. And that's cool because then you take different tensional selves and different references to look at the same facts. So you look at the fact to keep it simple with yourself. Look at it as a mother, look at it as a father, look at it as a friend, look at it as a brother, look at it as a cousin, look at it as a foreigner, look at it as you understand, look at the same fact in different ways. And by looking at the same fact, the same materiality in different ways, you'll get closer to something. But you used a lot of references, and you still ask other people, what do you think of this materiality? Oh, I think so. And others think, look, that's cool, but the materiality is there. It's not speculation, it's not possibility, it's the materiality of facts. The other thing I'll tell you about is metacognition. Metacognition is a very scientific thing, very neuroscience based. Metacognition, important for you, is that from age 25 to 35, there's a top down maturation. Top down neurons at the top of the brain slice, they deepen a little. This top down maturation allows you to think about your thoughts, think about your beliefs. This is top down maturation. There you find this spirituality isn't your belief, nor is it your faith. Spirituality is questioning, not denying. Why do I think if I were in another culture, I'd have a different religiosity, a different spirituality? And you just flow. You don't question whether it's right or wrong. You just adapt. Secular, which is basically metacognition. It's about thinking about your thoughts, your beliefs, your habits, your faith. What can you change? What can be improved here? And if it's there, metacognition again. There are people who believe in Pachamama. What is Pachamama like? How do you adapt to these people who believe in this spirituality? And there, it's something different. There, it's more Buddhist. How do you adapt? But I'm not Buddhist. Yes, but how do you adapt to these people who believe in Buddhism and in Christianity also, and in spiritualism also? So you have the following. You have metacognition because you know that your religiosity was the result of the education your parents gave you. Or basically, the majority of Brazil is Christian because when do Christians come from? After Europe came and invaded, after the European invasion and colonization, there began to be a lot of Christianity. Otherwise, we wouldn't be Christians. There simply wouldn't be Christianity here. This was a colonial imposition. Is there a problem with Christianity? None. But there is a problem with colonialism. The colonialism imposes Christianity as a truth. And then the researcher takes that and he has few questions. He has little freedom to do research. He will only do research according to those who like certain topics, and he will research certain topics that have to do with the minority. It has nothing to do with social problems. Look, sometimes, and I have this complaint, universities are there. A fancy, beautiful, cool university next to the university has a community within a 10 kilometers radius of the university. So I ask, is the university there? Does it help the community next to it? The answer is simpler. It's not difficult for a university to help the community where it lives. Why the university? If it doesn't help the community, who is it helping? Why? Did you notice the decolonial question? We have to help people, and the people you have to help the most are those closest to you. The university is close to some people. These are the people who need help. Neuroscience also talks about multimodality. It's always funny. That's what's cool. When you're going to realize this, for you to realize this in this moment, I'm smelling, I'm seeing, I'm hearing sound, and I have my touch. I'm sitting in the chair and I have my pains. Do you understand? I have all the sense organs. They're measuring the input to your brain, all the senses, sight, hearing, smell, bodily sensations. Everything is reaching your brain for you to perceive. So this is formed by this multimodality of data input into your brain, plus the training you receive since childhood, brain training, and the data that comes with your memory. And attention comes into the mix. This multimodality is fundamental for you. So what you're feeling, the smell, is affecting what you're seeing. If you think about it now, for example, my hand is there looking at you. I know the image is a little yellow, but if you think about a lemon like that, your hand can change color if you're sucking on it, drinking lemon juice. It changes slightly because your smell, your things are changing. Our perception is a combination of everything. It's not just vision. Vision has a smell in it when you perceive something. Smell. If I close my eyes and smell, it's one thing. If I look at what I'm smelling and smell it, it gives a different feeling. Because all the sense organs add value to the perception of any sense. It's this multimodality. It's the multisensory nature of each thing. This is neuroscience. This is close to you, so you can start doing it in your life, knowing that everything is together. And sometimes something is so difficult, so complicated, but maybe simply by putting a green towel, some water, something in there, I can change my perception just by placing an object, putting a picture on the wall. It changes the position of something, and sometimes the things that were most painful can become simpler for you. Our freedom is inscribed in our DNA. I've always thought that DNA, I always consider DNA to be the maternal intelligence of a living being. DNA. So DNA will express itself. It must express itself in the now. Sometimes people say freedom of expression. Okay, freedom of expression of DNA. Understand freedom of expression is part of DNA. Because sometimes colonial freedom of expression, look, boys are blue, girls are pink. That's not freedom of expression. Freedom of expression is part of DNA, not colonial, not in someone's doctrine of how DNA should express itself. The DNA that should express itself is mine. Yours is there with you. You know how to express yourself. And then you regulate yourself within the norms and rules of where you are in the place you are, not harming anyone and no one harming you. But freedom of expression is part of DNA. It's not in the culture. It fits into the culture so as not to be a cultural rebel. But freedom of expression is in our DNA. But on top of that, what we also need to have is an idea that is very important. The teaching and learning that you have, look, we learn and we teach. And I'll leave this question to you. Who are you learning for? Who is learning for? Sometimes we're learning things to keep the system as it is, to keep 0, 1 up there, always very rich, and controlling governments and controlling ministers and controlling representatives. And not paying taxes, of course, not paying taxes is essential. And then they teach you all sorts of things that corrupt your learning. You have a lifetime. So, what are you learning for? Or more precisely, where is your attention going? Is your attention adding value to your life? Or is it not adding value to your life? Is your attention under your control? Or are you in control of external stimuli or the internet? Where are your motivation and attention? Are you in control of them? Or are you drifting, waiting for a motivation that keeps asking? Drifting, helping someone, but not your DNA, not your expression. You're drifting, see?